Get granular. Keep me in the pipeline. But nada. Nothing. Don't you remember the McKittrick presentation? You spilled coffee on me, and I still looked amazing during the breakout talkback Q&A. So, I think it's time for me to move on. I've got a great resume, and I absolutely crush it in interviews, okay? Let's make this a clean break. Shift the paradigm. The only thing I ask is that you think outside the box here and do this. Take me to Goodwill, where I can really make a difference.
Your donations to Goodwill create new jobs, training programs, and education assistance for people in your community. To find your nearest donation center, go to goodwill.org. Donate stuff. Create jobs. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Secrets of Success. I'm your host, Bill Horan, and today we're speaking with Jenny Kassan, author of Raise Capital on Your Own Terms. Jenny, you have a quote in your book, I think it's on page 15. It sounds very unlawyerly-like. You don't succeed by following the rules and thinking like everyone else. You need to ask, what if and why not? You sound like the entrepreneur rather than the lawyer.
Yes, well, I have been really lucky to, I was very much of a lawyer when I got out of law school, but I got to know so many entrepreneurs. I started to take on that entrepreneurial mindset and sort of started running, being an entrepreneur in my own businesses. And I do believe that sometimes when we do things the way they've always been done, it may not be the most effective strategy, and we need to really question, why has it always been done this way? Is it because it's the best way, or just because for some reason someone decided this is how it's done? And that's the attitude I have about raising money. I love the idea that there's so many different options, why not choose the one that works best for you instead of the one that everyone tells you, oh, well, this is how it's done.
I would think the entrepreneurs must love hearing that from you, because when I saw that, I said, this is a different type of lawyer. You're not the lawyer, at least my perception, that just thinks inside the box and inside a box that's inside the first box, like most lawyers, and not knocking them. That's what they're trained to do. But you think like the entrepreneur, and by being able to do that, you're able to help them, I think, even more.
Yes, I mean, it is true that sometimes I can be the bearer of bad news when I say, well, okay, we can do this, but here are the, papers we have to file and fees we have to pay. So I definitely am not advocating not complying with the law, because, if you do make a mistake on that, it really does come back to bite you. But given that you can get creative with what's out there and still be, complying with the law.
Well, that's what we want to do. We want, obviously, that's the big part of it, but I definitely like the theory, the way you're going about it. And in your book, you also mention a lot of myths that people have. And having done the show we're almost 30 years on the air now, can you go through some of those myths? Because with raising money, I think a lot of us, if we are thinking of starting a business or why we couldn't or giving ourselves an excuse, we fall into these traps. So could you take us through some of those myths?
Sure. So, okay, I'm looking at them in my book. So, myth 1, you can only raise money from investors if you're going to grow your business very fast and have a liquidity event, which basically means you sell your company or do an IPO, and the investors have to make 30 to 50 times their initial investment. That's not true. None of my clients are in that boat, and they've raised hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. Should I go through all the myths first?
I would like to, if you don't mind, because I think they're so good, sure. and it really opens up so many opportunities.
Okay, myth number 2. Try to delay offering equity to investors as long as you can, because that is the most expensive money you can get. Not true. Even though you have to give up a lot of ownership and control when you raise money, the good thing about it is that your investors have experience and contacts in your industry, so they can advise you and make great connections for you. Often not true. Number 4, the investors set the terms of the investment. You are at their mercy. We already talked about that one.
And that's one I would definitely get wrong. I would tell you, I would have thought that if they're coming in, if I'm giving somebody money, I want this and that, they can twink it a little bit, but I would have been totally wrong with that.
Yeah. If you raise money from investors, you have to give up control and your investors become your boss. Does not have to be true. Once you have investors, you must put their interests first, above those of all other stakeholders in your business, or you risk being sued. Not true. Investors consist of very wealthy individuals and organizations. They are all looking for basically the same thing, and you need to tailor your business to fit what they're looking for. Not true.
You've made a lot of people feel a lot better with that. It's almost like saying, hey, you can go on a diet and still have the chocolate cake and the strawberry ice cream. Because I think that's what a lot of us fear, and just felt that we have to give up so much, et cetera, et cetera. Now, also in keeping with that, you have a list of true statements. So can you take us through those?
Sure. So number one, the vast majority of investors are satisfied with a financial return that is much less ambitious than what angels and venture capitalists demand. And I do want to note, so if, to the extent you've heard of, those stories of venture capitalists making these huge returns on investment, and that's what they want from you. They want you to show that you can make a huge killing as quickly as possible. And same thing with Shark Tank. That's kind of what they're looking for. Studies have actually shown that on average, the returns to those kinds of investments are 0 to negative. So, of course, they don't like to share their dirty little secret that their way of investing actually often doesn't work. They love to share their big wins. So, I would rather invest in a slow, steady way than look for that big return. And that's how most investors feel. Most investors consider a lot more than financial return when making investment decisions. So most investors really care about the values, the transparency, the relationship, lots of other things. Okay, number 2, you can design any type of investment offering you want. It does not have to be expensive money. It is possible to raise capital, equity, or debt without giving up any control. So yes, you can sell equity in your company, but still keep control. Investors can get healthy returns from steady-state businesses, ones that do not grow explosively. A liquidity event, i.e. a sale or IPO, is not required for investors to get paid back. The quote-unquote smart money that supposedly comes from professional investors is questionable. Some professional investors can be a huge asset to your company, while others will take the company in the completely wrong direction. You, as the founder of your business, often know a lot more than these supposed experts do about how to take your business in the right direction. Number 6, it is possible to design a company and its financing strategy in a way that reduces the likelihood of lawsuits, even if you don't always put your investors' interests first. The universe of investors encompasses far more than angels and venture capitalists, and each investor is unique.
I think you've just made a lot of people feel terrific that if they're thinking of opening up that restaurant, or maybe that restaurant will be the beginning of a franchise, or whatever business, a plumbing business, a dental office, healthcare, there's so many more opportunities than most of us felt. And I think if they're a little frustrated getting some capital into their business, they probably feel that, hey, if the bank or if the lender or the angel investor comes and says, this is the rule, I have to follow it. And you're telling us 99% of the time that's not the case. Did I understand it correctly?
Yes. In fact, even the fastest growing companies in our country on the Inc. 500, only 6% of those businesses took money from venture capitalists. So most businesses grow without having that model of the high growth, at any cost, to the point where 90% of the companies that go that route end up failing because they can't survive being pushed to grow that fast.
Jenny, again, I want our audience to know, and I'm asking them to write this down because somebody, your relative, your friend, the person on the desk next to you is going to say, who was that author? What was that book? The book is Raise Capital on Your Own Terms. It's by our guest, Jenny Kassan, Kassan. Jenny is an attorney. And Jenny, will you tell us the website and where we can find out and get the book?
Yes, so you can go to my website, jennykassan.com. And I have a whole page on my website that has some information about the book. You can download some chapters for free. And there's lots of other resources on my website as well for entrepreneurs that are looking to raise money.
And I will tell our audience that this is a very easy read. You don't have to be a securities expert or an attorney or an entrepreneur or even a business person. It's basic, straight-ahead language, but it's going to help you avoid a lot of problems. And rather than walk into someone's office and just take what they say, you now know the parameters of the game because Jenny's been there. She's done that. She's gone through lawsuits with this. She knows where the hot spots are, what you have to do, what you don't have to do. So why waste your money with someone who may not be as knowledgeable? Learn the rules first before you go into something and save yourself a lot of time, a lot of anguish, and really big money that can be wasted in the wrong direction. Now, Jenny, there's a section of your book you say what your lawyer won't tell you. Is that a secret, or why doesn't the lawyer want to tell us something? What's going on here?
Can you remind me the page number? I can't remember that part.
Sure. I think it's on page 25 in your book. I saw the legal framework, and you said what your lawyer probably won't tell you.
Probably won't tell you. Yes. So this is a chapter that summarizes the laws governing how you're allowed to raise money, and we call those the securities laws. And unfortunately, a lot of lawyers haven't taken the time to really learn all of the different options of how you can go out and raise money. There's one strategy that is used over and over again, and it requires you to only have one-on-one conversations, no public advertising at all of your offering, and it also requires you to only talk to wealthy investors, which are called, under the law, they're called accredited investors. And this is the one strategy that lawyers use over and over and over again. And they don't really realize that that's just one of many, many different options. And so this chapter and then another chapter in more detail lays out kind of all the different things you can do that are legally possible. So you could raise money in a way where you can shout it from the rooftops that you're raising money, and there's no limitation on, you know, who you're allowed to tell and how you're allowed to tell that you're raising money.
Jenny,
raise money. Oh, go ahead.
No, we know you're a great guest because I just look and our time went so quickly, and it sounds like we just began. You've been so interesting. Before we wrap up, I want our audience to know once again, Raise Capital on Your Own Terms is the book. It's by our guest, Jenny Kassan, Kassan. Jenny, thanks so much for being with us today. I'm sure you're going to be hearing from a lot of our audience and who want to find out more and open up that business venture and be entrepreneurs themselves. We'd like to let our audience know that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at this same time when we will continue our journey to success.